And to start us off, of course, in a good way, it is important to acknowledge our traditional lands. So we acknowledge at Rural Roads University that the campus is located on the traditional lands of the Lekwungen peoples, the Songhees, and the Esquimalt First Nations. And it is with gratitude that we live, learn, and work here, where the past, present, and future of Indigenous and non-Indigenous students, staff, and faculty come together. So very grateful to be here with all of you today. And of course, the reason we're here, folks, is to jumpstart your communications career, hopefully with our BA in professional communications. We're going to chat about that program here today. My name is Ariana Konjerski. I'm an education specialist here at Rural Roads. And I'm also pleased to be joined, of course, by Dr. Chaseten Remillard, who's an associate professor, program head for the BAPC on campus, and Dr. Geo Takach, who is a professor and program head for the online version of the program. So delighted to be here with you, Chase and Geo, as always. And just a quick agenda here today, folks. I'm going to give us a brief overview of the Rural Roads University experience just to kick us off here. We will go into, of course, the program details, review the admissions and how to apply. Then if you have any questions, as I mentioned, please feel free to pop them in the chat throughout. We'll have a question period at the end as well. Now, you may be asking yourself, why would you consider Rural Roads? And there are so many universities all across Canada. I want to share with you some recent alumni statistics from our alumni survey here at Rural Roads. I believe these numbers are pretty good, so I'm happy to share. 93% of alumni say that Rural Roads has positively influenced their personal and professional lives. 92% of alumni say that they felt supported by staff and faculty. 90% say that we provided them with the tools and knowledge required for a leadership role in the workplace. And 89% say that Rural Roads provided them with the tools and knowledge needed to be innovative in the workplace. And as a recent alumni of Rural Roads myself, I can confirm that those are indeed true. And I'm happy to share with you our space as well if you are thinking of an on-campus or blended program, or just in general, a few photos that are lovely to share. So you'll see to the top left, this building may look familiar to you. This is Hatley Castle, a castle that we have on campus. It's been a very famous movie set throughout the years. So films like X-Men and Deadpool have been filmed here. So it's pretty cool. We also have a variety of gardens and green space. So you'll just see to the right of that, we have a photo of our Japanese garden. So very beautiful space. We also have a migratory bird sanctuary on campus. You'll see to the bottom left, that's the Esquimalt Lagoon. And then also we've been doing online and blended learning for well over 25 years now. So just a small homage to that on the bottom right as well. And Rural Roads is also proud to be certified as an Ashoka U Changemaker Campus, one of few. This means that we have an innovative approach to education that prepares students as they address world problems, encourage others, and act for the good of all. And at this point, folks, I will stop talking and I will pass it off to my colleagues, Chase and Geo, to kick us off with some program information.
Thanks, Ariana. Geo, do you want to start?
Let's go alphabetically today.
By last name or first? Well, I guess that means that I should start. Yeah, so welcome to you all. I saw that there was one person from Niagara. I'm not sure where everyone else is. I didn't know if you get a chance to throw it into the chat, but my job is program head for the on-campus, and Geo is the program head for the online. And so we're slightly different in terms of our timing, but we share the same program and the same courses, so we can speak to the program overall. So the program is really one that, again, it varies in length. For if you're on campus, it's 1 year. If you're online, it's going to be longer than that, and I'll let Geo talk a little bit about what the online experience is like. But basically what the program does in general is try to bring together both practice and theory. So a lot of you may be coming from an environment in which you're working right now in communications in some way, or you may have a college program that you're in or just about finished that's going to be more practice-based. You maybe are in design or in filmmaking. You might be from journalism. You might be coming from public relations certificate. And what we do is we sort of take that as our starting point and we build upon that for a degree program that gives you 30 credits. So basically, or it gives you, the full 4-year degree, but you don't have to do it in 4 years. You only have to do it with us, either as a year on campus or online for a couple of years. And so what it does is it really allows to leverage your professional experience with the courses that we offer in theory and in practice as well. So Geo, do you want to talk a little bit about what the online version of the program might look like?
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Chase. They're both, I call them guerrilla completion degrees, because you're endeavoring to cram a large amount of material into a short span of time, whether it's 1 year in Chase's on-campus program or 2 years online in mine. The demographic traditionally has skewed a little bit older in the online program. On-campus program is fairly full on. People come here to Victoria and they basically devote a year of their lives, and hopefully not too much hair loss, to the program. Over 2 years, the theory is you continue working in your job and with all your other responsibilities, which you may also do in the on-campus program, but you spread it out over a couple of years. Our wrinkle is, in order to keep the degree to 2 years, we have a component we call the residency, which at one time we used to hold here in Victoria for 2 weeks in the merry month of May. We now hold it online. It's an intensive period in which we ask you to keep your 2-week slot ending just before Victoria Day, the 2 weeks before then, the 10 business days, flexible for classwork. It's an opportunity to get to meet and get to know and get to work with the folks in your program. But as Chase said, it's common curriculum, common goals. A wise man, I think, one of our colleagues once explained his vision of the BAPC to me, and it always stood out for me that it's basically 3 points of a triangle: the theory and the practice, as Chase mentioned, and also the creative. And when we talk about our suite of courses shortly, and how sweet they are too, you will see that some of them emphasize one or more of those 3 points more than others, although we do like to bring them together whenever we can. I know from my own experience as a learner, the word theory gets a fairly bad rap. I think Chase and I have both taught theory, and we have a healthy appreciation for it. It's new and different ways to think. What drew me to Royal Roads as a longtime practitioner before coming here to teach of communication was the sweet spot between theory and practice. Yeah, you'll learn the theory, but we're very much an applied research university. We're one of, I think, 5 provincially designated research universities. So we are expected to do research, which involves, I suppose, engaging in eggheadery. But our applied focus means that we are using that research in a practical context to make something better, whether it's yourself, a relationship, a small group, an organization that you're part of, a municipality, all the way up to a planet. That's up to you. Some initial thoughts. Back over to somebody.
Yeah, so I'll thanks, Geo. So Geo sort of talked about the delivery for the on-camp or online, which you have here in the slides: 2 years, 2-week intensive residency, as he called it, and students can work full time. For us, when you come to campus, we start in September and we finish the next year in late August, mid to late August. So it's basically 12 months, and we do both programs do years 3 and 4. Ours do 3 and 4 in an accelerated model. And if you are on campus, you do need to be able to come to campus. So you'd have to move here to Victoria for that year. And so that's the commitment, but you are done in a year, and that's the trade-off. So you do get through it all and you get your full degree in 1 year. So that's a unique opportunity in in Canada, is to be able to get a degree with only 1 year commitment like that if you do want to come to campus. If you can't, and you're like Geo said, you have other responsibilities, family, personal, or professional, then the 2 year online is a great option, because you get to also get your degree, but you can stay where you're at and you can work, continue to work, and you can also continue to provide all the other supports that you might want to have to do in your family life or in your personal life. So what is the program actually? And Gio and I, we kind of both have a little bit of background in theater, and so Gio more than I, but when we envisioned this course and we did a revision of it a few years ago, we didn't want to call them terms. We actually called them acts. There's 4 acts to the BA, but they wouldn't let us put that out online because they said that it would be too weird and people wouldn't understand it. So we sort of have a narrative to the program, that brings you through those 4. So I'll talk about sort of the first 2, and then I'll let Gio take the last 2. But the first act, as we call it, covers these types of courses. They might change in slight order depending if you're online or face-to-face. But if you're face-to-face on campus, you're going to get all 5 of these courses in your first term. And basically, you can see visual communications, written communications, theory, foundations and research methods. These are sort of the foundational building blocks of a communications practitioner. So in this opening act, we really want, let's say you came to campus and you go back for the winter break, this opening term will hopefully, or this opening act will hopefully give you what you would need to answer the question from that sort of noisy, loud aunt who sort of says something like, "Oh, you're studying communications. What does that mean? You're posting stuff online." So this act is all about answering that question. What do we mean, and what do we do when we talk about professional communications? Is going to give you that background. And because people do come from, because we're not a university that have you for the first 2 years, you're going to come from different backgrounds, right? And that's what makes the program really great, because you get a nice diversity of student experiences in the classroom. But it also means that we want to kind of like define what we mean when you're at Royal Roads. When you say, "Oh, well, I'm taking communication," we're sort of defining that for you in this first act, right? What does it mean to do communications according to us? And so that's sort of those first five courses. The next 5 we call platforms, right? And so, thinking about the ways in which, or all of the different places in which we communicate. So we don't just communicate face to face, but we also communicate digitally. We talk about different different places, different mechanisms to reach people, right? So platforms is all about those, the medium, right? The medium by which we communicate, or the media by which we communicate. So we have the history course, we call like the historical and conceptual foundations in digital communication, which has a really long name, but basically it's, how do we know the environment that we're in right now, which is this amazing environment, this digital environment, in terms of where we came from in how we communicated in the past. So, Marshall McLuhan talks about these eras or epochs of communication, right? And he sort of writes a history of the world according to communication technology. Well, this course sort of puts you in contact with that. What does it mean to have a society move from analog to digital? What does it mean to move from written to, to mass media, right? These changes in communication technologies make a huge difference. And right now we're living through one that we just don't fully understand. And so we're starting to see all kinds of impacts that we didn't anticipate, right? Do we have a rise of political polarization because of social media? How are those connected? Like, they seem to be connected, but are they? Does our actual conceptual abilities change if we're always interacting with people in Zoom? Does that mean that we're losing certain human capacities? Is that an impact on that? So McLuhan again says, famously, the medium is the message. And that's sort of what this course is about, right? Is to try to understand the ways in which how we communicate impact what we understand the world to be and what we understand ourselves to be. And then in there as well, of course, we want the practice courses. So we have these great courses, Advanced Digital Communications, which is basically you understanding and learning what it means to be a content curator, content creator, digital communications expert. We have multimedia storytelling. So that goes hand in hand with that. How are you going to be able to create effective podcasts? How are you going to create good video content? So that's the multimodal or multimedia storytelling. Public persuasion, which is all about understanding the power of rhetoric, creating, convincing arguments, being able to present yourself professionally in speech, like in online, giving good presentations, giving good persuasive speeches. And then the last one, or the sort of the fourth one on that list, but the communication planning and stakeholder, is thinking about the ways in which you can kind of tie all of that together into a coherent whole to say, look, we want to get to this group. We want that group to do something. And we think these are the best platforms for them to be reached, right? So that's the communication planning. So it all sort of comes together in that planning in a way, because you're taking what you know from the theory, you're taking what you know from these different platforms, and in that planning part of it, you're learning to say, this as a professional practitioner is what I'm going to be able to offer an organization to advance their needs through communications. And one little point before I pass it on to Geo, is that this stuff is worth money. I don't want to be completely transactional about it, but we've had students take that communication plan and sell it to an organization for $1,500. That actually is, I'm not even like making that up, that legitimately happened. And so it's not that your degree is waiting for you at the end to give you something useful. It's these things that you're learning are things that organizations, companies, nonprofits, individuals need. They don't understand it. It seems like it's super easy to do, but it's not. And that's what this is all about, right? Is this degree. So at this point right now in your degree, after these 5 courses, or, after these 10 courses, you're halfway through, you've really professionalized yourself to a really high extent, enough that you could actually take the deliverable from that course, which students have, and go out and offer it to an organization, and it would bring not only monetary value, but also, like value for them to be able to do what they need to do. So that's a overview of the first 2, and then Geo can take us through the final.
Hey, thanks, Chase. Chase has spoken about the first 6 months or first year of the on-campus and online program, respectively. So you've turned the quarter. You get your intermission between the two, which hopefully will be more than a modest weekend off. And we move into what Chase and I call the context third of the 4 quarters. I guess we never went with the football analogy for some point, didn't get any traction. So here we get into some detailed applications of some of the concepts that Chase has been telling you about. We've got a course in global communication, which recognizes that we do in many ways, notwithstanding all the talk we're hearing these days about tariffs or not tariffs, we do live in an international community where we do need to communicate with audiences, sometimes even further than our own neighborhood and beyond. Our school does have a degree program called the Master of Arts in International and Intercultural Communication. This is one of our two nods to that important and continuing to emerge area of communication studies. The current topics course varies from year to year. But one that we've been offering most recently is a course in analytics, understanding that, again, we talk about sports a moment ago as an example of an industry that has been completely, you can use words like infiltrated, overtaken, blessed by, enhanced by, maybe even all of the above. The application of data. So how do you work as a communicator in that environment? That's what this offering of the special topics course is about. Special topics means we can rotate and sub in courses without going through the extensive curriculum committee approval process that we have in place for our courses and programs. Strategic internal and external communication talks about, it's a little bit of public relations, it's a little bit of organizational communication, it's a little bit of a lot of things, but it's communicating within and beyond an organizational context, I would summarize it as. And it's communication is very much a borrowing discipline. A prof that I think both Chase and I managed to have in the course of our grad school, the great Maria Bakardieva, used to, could barely repress a giggle when she described communication studies as a very promiscuous discipline because it borrows from all kinds of different disciplines and areas: anthropology, linguistics, history, sociology, psychology, film studies. There's a lot that we do borrow from, and it's like life. The problems that land on your desk aren't going to be siloed into particular areas. They're going to involve elements of many of these courses that we're talking about and even beyond. So that element of interdisciplinarity is something that we like to feature in the BAPC, certainly in that third bullet course, but also in the next two, which I've had a hand in bringing forward. The sustainability communication, as you'd fathom, is about communicating in the context of sustainability issues. Environmental, certainly, but also social and economic, and also notions of regenerative sustainability. What does that mean? It's giving you some tools to address that context and that reality. And communication in Indigenous contexts is a course that was co-created with the help of our Director of Indigenous Education, the also great Russell Johnston. And it's a course that invites you, whether you are Indigenous or a non-Indigenous person, to situate yourself and position yourself in relation to Indigenous teachings and Indigenous texts. There are guest speakers. If you're on campus, land-based learning becomes easier than virtually, but we do bring some of that mojo into the online context as well. Students have described this course as transformational, which is one of the three core pillars of our learning, teaching, and research model, which I commend to you. If you're interested, Ariana, if you wouldn't mind, or Vivian, if you can put a link to our learning, teaching, and research model in the chat box. If you only read one background document about Royal Roads, that might be one of them. I hope you read more, but that sets out the DNA of our institution and what we believe in as teachers and learners and researchers. And geeky admission, it's what actually drew me to the university, because I read it and went, criminy, there are actually people who think the way that I do. Let's move on to the fourth act, big finale. Thank you. Where we actually moved to, a lot of fingers on the buttons. A number of us have control of the advance button, can you tell? And we're all keen to do the job well. Now we're actually into some applications, some harder core applications of the theory and practice and creativity that we've been talking about. Media and cultural studies is in some ways it's an advanced theory course, but again, it's in a very practical context. It's about the relationship between media and culture and technology, how those three things shape and are shaped by each other. It's the first course I ever taught here. It is a sentimental favorite. Learn all kinds of great stuff there. I'll stop now. Interpersonal communication across cultures is our intercultural communication offering. There are some really important things that we need to know given the diversity of the global population. And the fact that there are different communication styles within each culture, but there are certainly some attributes of cultures that we can look to for guidance in beginning to approach complex problems of intercultural communication in a local and global environment. The professional experience in communication is our celebrated practicum course, where you get a project approved with an approved client, we'll use that word this time, client, and work on a communication problem in a practical setting. Crisis communication does not, we think, refer to the quality of teaching you receive in the course, but rather to the context of the course. We live in a polycrisis, which is not actually the last 5 McCartney albums. Actually, we have an institute called the Cascade Institute, centered here at Royal Roads University, which talks about the notion of a number of different environmental, economic, social, and other points of tension around the world coming together at a single point in time. Crisis communication is about how you communicate in a crisis, what you as a communicator can do to help yourself and your organization navigate communicating with people in a crisis. And our last course is another sentimental favorite of the BAPC brothers, the portfolio and capstone course, which is kind of it's not a holodeck. It's the deck between, it's the bridge between your learning here at Royal Roads, sorry, you're looking at me this way, between your learning here at Royal Roads and the rest of your career. It's calling on you to reflect on, as a scholar practitioner, reflect on your learning in the program and how you're going to take it forward. So you're going to be doing a capstone project and you're going to be building a portfolio to take with you when you leave, whether or not you are employed within an organization. A digital portfolio we found, and more importantly our graduates have found, is a helpful tool to take with them. So that's a look at the first 4 and also coincidentally the last 4 acts of the BAPC program.
Yeah, so where do you go when you're done with the degree? And it's as varied as it was from where you're coming from, but we have a lot of our graduates go on to do some pretty amazing things. They get jobs in all types of different sectors: advertising, broadcasting, business, public relations, communications. I was just talking to somebody the other day, another faculty member, and she mentioned that one of her students that she had in the BA prior to when Geo and I were here, just a year before, about 11 years ago, they're now doing like extremely high level content for organizations like Oprah Winfrey and for Disney and so on. And they are like now so far in their career that like they said, hey, can I come back and teach or give a guest lecture or what have you, as an alumni. So um, you know, the sky is sort of the limit. You know, is you have opportunities to go on. Some of our grads go on to take grad school. Some of them become instructors in other institutions. Some become filmmakers. Some become uh, you know, advisors. There's all kinds of different ways in which you can use this degree. Some people also take this degree because they're interested in just the convenience of getting something quickly, and they go on then to law school or they go on to education. So it's a degree that you can use to pursue other avenues of employment that that require a primary degree, and it gives you that opportunity as well. So it gives you opportunity to go to grad school, and it also gives you opportunity to go into more professional degrees like education or law. So there's all kinds of different places that our grads go, and we can always connect you if you're interested with an alumni who will tell you what it's really like to be in the program from a student's perspective, but also probably tell you all of the advantages of the degree that they've received from Royal Roads. A lot of our students are our best advocates because, like Geo pointed out, our learning and teaching model is one that we really put a like an emphasis and a focus on students. And in a lot of universities, you're just a number. I know what my number was from my undergrad. I still know it because that was literally all I needed to put on my papers when I submitted things. And I would challenge any one of our students currently in our programs to actually know what their student number is, because they are all known by their names. And I think that just speaks to the type of care and support that our program brings to our students and just in general at Royal Roads, and not just our programs, the BA in professional communication, but in general at Royal Roads. So I think, you know, choosing a university like Royal Roads that's smaller, the value of that is that you have a real proximity to your instructors and to your professors. You have a lot of support that's there to help you through. And that is reflected in our graduate rate, where we are, you know, it's almost 100%. And in my tenure as being program head, I can only think of a few students who didn't finish the program. And that's because basically, I mean, it's sort of a sad fact, but they suffered sort of a personal tragedy that didn't really allow them to continue as they had planned. But otherwise, if you aren't touched with that sort of bad luck, most people get through, and that's not the same as other universities. And so you know, it is a real advantage of being at Royal Roads, and it's something that doesn't really translate through a PowerPoint. It's more, you know, it's just more of a personal and kind of relationship thing that you feel when you get in the program. And it's sort of ineffable. It's sort of it can't really be given words, but it's there, and you get the feeling of it. You get the feeling of it in being in the program. So yeah, so there's a lot of good places to go after your degree, and you're going to be supported in those goals that you have when you come into the program. Geo, I think there was a couple of questions that came into the chat, I think, that are more your program offering than mine. So
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you, Chase, and thank you, Daniela, for your question. Your question is, I think, one that is very very appropriate, very sensible. Like, how many hours would this take us? Here's the theory. The theory is, well, of course, each student's workload depends on factors like your learning style, your life schedule, your work situation. Are your employers accommodating and supportive, or are you doing this as a separate thing? So we'll start with some very general assumptions. Our courses are 3 hours, 3 credits, and it's generally assumed about 33 hours of student work per course. So if we multiply that by, this is getting mathematical. We weren't supposed to use math, Chase, when we pursued this this line of this discipline, but apparently we do. You multiply it by 3 hours per student for each designated hour of class time. That adds up to 99 hours per course, which spreads out over a 10-week course. So the breakdown is, in theory, 9 or 10 hours a week per course. If you're taking 1 or 2 courses at the same time, at least in the online program, that gives you an idea of what you can expect. Again, this is a very general yardstick, and your mileage may vary.
I'll just add that because there might be people in the room that are thinking about coming to campus. And so keeping in mind that if you were face-to-face, you would be taking 5 courses at once. And those 5 courses typically run, like Geo said, 10 to 11 weeks. We have a shorter term than other universities because we are making everything fit within a year. So that is why it's called an intensive offering, because you do have to hustle as you know, you hit the ground running, and you're going to be running full tilt the whole time through. But that formula basically sort of translates. So, you know, it's like for each course you're going to take is about 10 hours a week. So they say, you know, but you have to keep in mind that also, when you're doing face-to-face, means that that's including your time in classroom, and that's including your time reading, and including your time meeting with your groups and all that. So it's not that it's just like 10 hours of straight reading, right, every week. It's manageable, and students on campus do typically have a class, usually either like every morning. We usually go like every morning and have all our afternoons off, or we do depending on availability of of classrooms and so on, or we do sort of a 3-day week where you have 2 classes on 2 days and 1 class on a 3rd day. So you oftentimes have sort of a long weekend, or time to have a part-time job. So that's the hope, is that we try to make it enough time in classroom so that you have what you need to have, but also give you enough time out of class that you can have a life and also get a little bit of secondary income.
Just PS to that, thanks, Chase. In the online program, instructors are encouraged to, and I certainly do, have a 1-hour live class every week, typically at a time determined in conjunction with the class by poll, where we come together for a week and actually have a live session together. It's early evenings or common times, but again, they vary, and that's part of it too. That way you connect with your instructor, and you connect with your colleagues in the same space every week. We think that's an important part of how people can learn well, and learning well together and teamwork are an important part of that learning, teaching, and research model that I mentioned earlier. Question on master's program, but not in communications. Have there been other students who have done this? Yes. From firsthand experience, I can tell you that people have used their BAPC for degrees, for master's degrees in the environmental arena, certainly is what I'm familiar with. And I think possibly also in political science, but it's a communications degree because it is a borrowing discipline. I would argue, does position you for success across for admission across a wide spectrum of programs. Chase, anything in your experience you want to speak to?
Well, yeah, I mean, a degree for most is a degree, and so it would depend on the graduate program that you would be interested in. And one of the things that you could do is, knowing that you wanted to go into a grad program, let's say in whatever field it was, you could tailor some of your bigger coursework or your essays and so on, to speak to those types of theories if they ever were to ask for a writing sample or something like that. So, but most of the time for grad school, unless they have a very specific, like, narrowed understanding of what their discipline is, they will usually take a degree in whatever it is that you have, as long as it has some sort of overlap, right? Like, you're not going to be able to go into organic chemistry from communications, right? But if you're going to sociology or anthropology or or an MBA or these types of things, then I wouldn't see it being an issue for sure.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Chase and Geo. I see there is another question here, which we can address a little bit later. So I think that is fine for now. So thank you both so much for the program information. Of course, feel free to keep putting your questions in the chat, folks, and we'll see if we can get to a couple more. I'll just take us through some how to apply. So if you are thinking of joining us soon, just a few quick tips and tricks and steps on how to apply here. So at Royal Roads University, we have both standard admissions and flexible admissions. So I'll review a little bit of both. For standard admissions, we look for the completion of a diploma or 60 credits in communication, journalism, business administration, general arts, including a minimum of 24 second-year credits with a minimum GPA of a B. So that's a 3 or a 4.33 from a recognized post-secondary institution. We'll talk a little bit about transfer agreements as well in a second, which we also have available. We also have flexible admission. So this is one of my favorite parts when I get to talk about Royal Roads to bring up with people, just because it can open so many doors. So flexible admissions looks like normally a minimum of 5 years of relevant work experience in the areas of communication, public relations, journalism, or other fields, and the evidence of having sufficient knowledge, skills, and abilities to complete a demanding academic course of study. So this is assessed, of course, on a case-by-case basis. It would be hard to kind of make broad sweeping statements like that, but just know that there are those two pathways that are available for you when you apply to the program. Another thing of note is language requirements. So English is the primary language of instruction and communication. If your primary language is not English, there are a couple ways that you can take here. So you can hold a recognized credential from an English-speaking country, submitting an official English language proficiency test, or completing one of our Global Learning and Language Center programs. We do have helpful links as well, which I'll be sure to include in my follow-up, but you can check out all of these things that I'm talking about on our website at royalroads.ca. There is much more information than what I'm providing here. So just something to note as we move through these pieces. And I mentioned transfer agreements. You'll see we have quite a lot. So transfer agreements are pathways that you could take. So if you are studying at a college, we have a list of programs that can feed into the Bachelor of Arts in Professional Communication. So if you're attending any of these colleges, again, all of this information, as I mentioned before, is on our website. So be sure to check it out at the link below, and I'll include that in the follow-up as well. And if you're looking at how to apply, we have a few quick steps here. So looking at an online application fee, folks, of about $136.69. And then we ask for some supporting documentation. So things like official transcripts, a detailed resume, a personal statement as well, which is kind of like a cover letter if you are applying to a job, really saying what do you want to get out of the program, what you hope to bring into the program, and a little bit about yourself. Again, more details online about that. And then 2 letters of reference. Those can either be academic or professional in nature, and then those English language requirements that I spoke about briefly before. And we have a few key dates. So we spoke a little bit about the online and on-campus version. So if you're looking at joining us online, the application deadline coming up soon. It's somehow already December. So December 20th, 2024, starting in March 24th. On campus as well is coming up, application deadline in June, so June 15th, and then that will start in September 15th, 2025. So next year, not that far away though. And of course, we have some services that are available to you. We know that going back to school in any regard, this is a big step. So things like financial resources, so loans, bursaries, scholarships, other awards, student research scholarships, and emergency funding, because sometimes life happens. So those are all available to you on our website. And then we have my colleague, Andrea from Enrollment Services. I see her in the chat, so thank you so much for popping in some links as well. We have our enrollment advisors who can be reached at learn.more@royalroads.ca. And if you prefer to give them a call, just some phone numbers for local and for toll-free for North America as well. And they're very helpful. They can help you narrow down your program options, answer any questions you have about your application, connect you with students, alumni, all of the good stuff. So please do feel free to reach out any point after this webinar if you have any questions at all. All this information again will be in the recording that I send out after the session. And at this point, folks, thank you so much. Thank you for your time, for listening to our presentation here. Of course, I want to say thank you to my colleagues, Andrea, my colleague Vivian as well, Chase and Geo. Chase and Geo, I just want to give you the floor one more time if you have any last thoughts to wrap us up here before we sign off today.
Oh, I just typed a big note there from, I think it's Matthias, about transfer agreements. I think one of the things to mention about transfer agreements is that Royal Roads is actually very unique in our acknowledgement of your previous credentials. In most cases, even if you had a transfer agreement to, let's just say University B and then Royal Roads, at University B, they would say, yes, you have a transfer agreement and we'll acknowledge some of your credits, but we still want you to take these courses, and inevitably that prolongs your time at that institution by probably about a half a year. So if you were to go from most places through a transfer agreement, you wouldn't get what I would say sort of a one-to-one transfer. And at Royal Roads, you get that one-to-one. So if you have those 60 credits at another institution, or if you have a transfer agreement, then we say, okay, yeah, you just have to do 2 years. You don't have to do 2 years and 2 months. You don't have to do whatever. And you don't have to put any equivalency requests in. I mean, in other words, you don't have to track down a syllabus or a course outline, send it to the registrar and ask for additional allowances. So that basically means that if you're coming from like the Vancouver Film School, whatever you have in your pocket is going to give you entrance into our programs and allow you not to have to do anything but the 60 credits with us. And that is for any of those institutions that have a transfer agreement. And that, to be honest, is not usually the case. And so that's why it's another really big advantage. And similarly with flexible admissions, Royal Roads is one of very few, if not the only institution that I know that will accept a flexible admissions into an undergrad program and to a grad program. So it's really a place that does value what you've done and doesn't try to take from you and make you do something that you don't need to do just for bureaucratic reasons. So yeah, that's what I would say. I hope that answers that question. Happy to answer any other questions. And thanks again for coming, and I'll let Geo have the last word.
Thanks very much, Chase. Thank you all very much for coming. Thank you, Ariana, Vivian, and Andrea also for joining us. Great to work with you, good folks. Good luck to you, whether or not you end up applying to and working with us. Good luck in all of your adventures. Thanks for coming.
Thanks so much. Thank you, everybody. And we hope, of course, that we will see you in a webinar next time, and we'll see you in the program. Until then, take care, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.